Good afternoon. My name is Kristen McCosh, and I'm here to talk to you today about my work with the City of Boston. So give me just a moment while I share my screen. Great. So as I said, my name is Kristen McCosh, and I'm the Disability Commissioner and ADA Title II Coordinator for the City of Boston. In this role, I lead the city's collaborative efforts to ensure accessibility and inclusion so that all residents and visitors with disabilities have an equal opportunity to participate in everything that the city has to offer. And I do this through my work in City Hall, which is the building you can see behind me right now. So my office strives to increase opportunities for people with disabilities by ensuring full access and inclusion in all aspects of life within the City of Boston. We work on eliminating barriers in architecture and communication, as well as creating systemic accessibility in all City of Boston policies, procedures, programs, and services. And what systemic access means is that every single city department in all the work they do, they ensure that everything they run is accessible. This could be everything from the Boston Transportation Department when they look at sidewalks and streets, to the libraries when they look at installing elevators in older buildings, to Boston Public Schools. As we know, they have lots of students they have to watch out for, and there are plenty of students with disabilities, so we want to make sure all the schools are accessible. So I'm here today to talk to you about four main areas of my work. The first is on-street accessible parking. The second is architectural access. The third is community engagement. And the fourth is our advisory board. So first, to talk about accessible parking in Boston. Well, as I'm sure you know, parking in Boston itself is challenging. But when you have a disability and you're looking for parking, it can be even more of a challenge. So my office runs a program that installs on-street accessible parking spaces for people with disabilities. You can see the picture on the right has a sign with a wheelchair on it and language below that says HPDV, plate or placard only. So I run this program in coordination with the transportation department to ensure that we install these signs in areas of the city where they need to go. So to talk a little bit more about these signs, there are approximately 4,000 on-street HPDV accessible parking spaces in Boston's neighborhoods. This means that there are these signs in all the neighborhoods that are mainly residential, places like Dorchester, West Roxbury, South Boston, East Boston, Mattapan, Charlestown, any neighborhood in the city, we ensure to take a look at them and make sure that we put accessible parking spaces in. So the way we do this is we work with residents who reach out to us and tell us that they need more accessible parking in their neighborhood. So they can apply to have a space near their home through an application process through my office. So if you are a resident or you know a resident who needs more accessible parking in their neighborhood, please have them email boston.gov/disability and we can get them an application. Subsequently to that, there are also approximately 1,000 accessible HPDV spaces in commercial areas in Boston. These areas include Downtown Crossing, the Seaport, Fenway, Copley, the Financial District, any areas that are mainly commercial in nature. We work with the Boston Transportation Department to put in accessible spaces. And if you've ever seen any of them, you may notice that they usually come in groups. So for instance, in front of the Boston Public Library in Copley Square, we have a whole block of accessible parking. And we do this because we know that people go to these areas for business, for appointments. It's really important that we spread the spaces all around the city so people with disabilities can get around and do what they need to do. So anyone with an HP or DV placard or license plate from the registry or any other state can park in these spaces. And the second thing I want to talk to you about is architectural access in the city of Boston. So I have 2 architects on my staff, and they review plans and provide technical assistance to ensure that Boston's built environment is accessible and inclusive of people with disabilities. In the diagram on the right, you can see building plans of a front door along with steps and a ramp. So my staff would take a look at this and make sure that the designers included things like an accessible door, make sure the ramp is wide enough. They look at the hand railings. They'll look at the doorbell or communication devices, which are in the circle. And if they see things that they don't think are ideal, like maybe the button is too high or the doors are too heavy, they will give input to the city department that's working on this and let them know what changes they need to make to ensure that it's accessible. So to talk a little bit more about that, my staff architects review plans for large buildings downtown, for housing developments, whether it's the Boston Housing Authority, public housing, or private developers making condos or apartments. Also universities, hospitals, or any other institution. Pretty much they review building plans for anything that's not a 1, 2, or 3 family home. And they do this to ensure that any of these large buildings are accessible to people with disabilities. For instance, you may want to rent an apartment in a new development or buy a condo. We know people with disabilities go to hospitals and universities. So we just want to make sure that we're giving it that extra look to ensure that everything is accessible and inclusive for people with disabilities. They also review accessibility in the public right-of-way. The public right-of-way refers to streets, sidewalks, curb ramps, intersections, bike lanes, and outdoor dining. Basically anything that's on pedestrian paths open to the public. So I'm sure you know what sidewalks and curb ramps are, so we review all of that work. We also look at intersections to make sure they have audible pedestrian signals for people who are blind. The city's been installing a lot of new bike lanes recently, so we look at those to make sure they don't impact the disability community in any particular way. And then during the pandemic, outdoor dining really proliferated in Boston. If you've been here in the last 2 years, I'm sure you have noticed that the North End has a ton of outdoor dining, the South End, Beacon Hill, even the neighborhoods have begun to install outdoor dining setups. So my staff looks at all these setups to make sure that the tables aren't blocking any sidewalks or curb ramps. They also look to make sure that the dining areas have an accessible table and that someone in a wheelchair could get through the past the tables to get a seat. So they really look at the whole picture of outdoor dining. They also review all city-owned properties, including schools, libraries, recreation centers, parks, municipal buildings, and polling places. Now, polling places may not actually be owned by the city. They could be located in places like senior centers or churches, and these are the places where people go to vote. So my staff looks at them just to make sure that anybody who uses a wheelchair can get in, or somebody who's blind can use the equipment there. So this is a really critical part of our work, is to make sure that city-owned properties, but also properties where the city has programs like voting, are accessible to the public. And the third thing I want to talk about is the Boston Disability Commission Advisory Board. This is a group made up of 13 residents who are appointed by the mayor. They either have a disability or are a family member of somebody with a disability. And there's a picture on the right of one of our board meetings. So the mayor really works hard to ensure that board members represent Boston's diverse neighborhoods, races, ethnicities, genders, identities, and disabilities. So the really key piece for this board is disability representation, because we want to make sure that we have somebody with a mobility impairment, like someone in a wheelchair, somebody who's blind, somebody who's deaf and uses sign language, people with mental health disabilities and cognitive disabilities. We want to make sure that we're getting input from everybody in the city and include every type of disability when we look at programming and policies. As you can see in the second bullet, the board's responsibility is to give input and guidance on city policies and programs that may impact the disability community. So one example of this is one of our board members noticed during the pandemic that a lot of information was being put on the TV about public health guidelines and closing of city services and public buildings, but he couldn't understand any of it because he's deaf and there were no captions. So he suggested to our office that we create an ordinance which would require TVs in public spaces to have captions on at all times. This would include TVs in restaurants and bars, in gyms, in hair and nail salons. So we're currently working with the city council to bring this to the level of making it a caption that we can put in place across the whole city. That way, every TV that's on in a bar room or a restaurant would be accessible to somebody who's deaf or hard of hearing without them having to ask to have the captions turned on. And this is just an example of one of the important things that our board works on, raising issues like that to our level so we can implement them within city government. Now, the board also holds public meetings once a month on Zoom. Right now, they're on Wednesday evenings, the second or third Wednesday of the month, and the public is always welcome and encouraged to attend. You can get more information about board meetings at boston.gov/disability. The fourth area of my work I want to talk to you about is disability community engagement in the city of Boston. So we offer opportunities for people with disabilities to get involved. And we do that in a number of ways. First, we hold annual events every year. We hold 4 large annual events, typically beginning with the Disability Community Forum in the spring. So our forum gives people with disabilities a chance to come out and meet with city officials and give input on what's working and what's not working. Usually the mayor attends, I'll attend, and the board members attend. We also sometimes bring commissioners from Public Works or Public Health Commission so that people can hear directly on issues of importance to them. So we invite everybody to come to the forum if they want to give us updates on what's working on things like sidewalks or parking or any programs you've noticed that the city's doing that you'd like to have input on. Please attend the forum in the spring. Our biggest event every year is ADA Day, and that's held in July near the anniversary of the ADA. This year was the 32nd anniversary because the ADA was passed in 1990. So this event is really a fun celebration. We have music and free food. We give away awesome t-shirts, and we have information tables with staff from city departments like Age Strong and the Veterans Commission and the Elections Commission, as well as tables from nonprofits like the Boston Center for Independent Living, Deaf Inc., and especially Spalding Rehab Hospital and the Greater Boston chapter of the National Spinal Cord Injury Association. If you didn't get to come to our event this year, we still have t-shirts left over. So if you'd like one to be mailed to you, please email us at disability@boston.gov. Let us know your size and your address, and we'll send you one in the mail. Our next annual event is called Civic Engagement Day. And this is my favorite because it really brings people with disabilities into City Hall to teach them about getting involved in local government. You can register to vote. You can do a mock voting session at a polling booth. You can see the AutoMark machine, which helps people who are blind or have dexterity disabilities to vote independently. You can learn how to testify at a city council hearing, meet your neighborhood liaisons, meet your city council liaisons, hear from the mayor, and just generally get to see City Hall and its accessibility features. Look at the city council chamber to see how the podium is and where you would sit if you come to listen to a hearing or to give input on a hearing. It's just a great day. And this year it's being held on Wednesday, October 12th from 10 a.m. to noon. So if anyone's interested, you can email disability@boston.gov for more information. And then our final annual event is called Disability Mentoring Day. And this is held every October. And on this day, we bring people with disabilities into City Hall for a morning of job shadowing, an afternoon lunch with human resources to learn about applying for a city job, and then an afternoon of kind of a mini job fair where we have different city departments and local businesses come in and talk about any job openings they have. And we do sort of a round robin with people who come to the event, people with disabilities who are looking for work. So they can do like mini little interviews on the spot. And we've actually had a few people get hired this way. So that's a great day that we're looking forward to in October. And then another way you can get involved is through summer internships. We offer these for high school and college students. High school students work on a variety of projects that we usually set up for them, but college students oftentimes propose projects to us. For instance, this year we have a college student who's working on disability history in the city of Boston. So he's researching famous individuals and institutions in Boston that traditionally served people with disabilities. You may know that the Perkins School for the Blind started in Boston, and we've actually been like groundbreaking in a lot of ways for people with disabilities and accessibility and inclusion. So I'm really looking forward to him finishing up that project this fall. And then we also have an internship program with the Mass Rehab Commission. We call it OJEP, the On-the-Job Experience Pipeline Program. And this brings people with disabilities who are Mass Rehab clients into City Hall for 6 weeks paid internships, where they can pick a department that they're interested in working for, get some on-the-job experience, and at the end of the internship, apply for the job. The internships are paid by Mass Rehab, so it's a great program to give people experience and give them a chance to show off their skills in a department that they may want to work for. And then finally, we do information and referral on disability issues. So if you have a question about something and you're not sure where to look, you can call our office or email us. We also have a weekly email newsletter where we give out tons of information about what's happening in City Hall and also what's happening in the disability community. You can sign up by visiting our website at boston.gov/disability or emailing us at disability@boston.gov. And then finally, you can attend our advisory board meetings to learn about what's going on in the community. You could just listen, or you could give input about something we're working on or something you'd like to raise to the board. So that concludes my presentation, but I do want to say, if you'd like more information, please contact my office. We're in Boston City Hall, room 967 on the 9th floor. We take walk-ins. If you're in the neighborhood and you'd like to pop in, please do. You can always email us at disability@boston.gov or go to our website, www.boston.gov/disability. And our phone number is 617-635-3682. So I really want to thank you for giving me this chance to present this information to you. And I am going to stop sharing my screen and say that if you are interested in any of the information that I gave on this presentation, please reach out to me, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.